Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Saturday Morning Comic Review. I'm your host, Dylan Wallace. Today, we got a great Omega Run issue for you guys. It's going to be 10 books that we review. Remember, the Omega Run is a lot of my backlogs, so it tends to be a mix of the things I didn't get to in the previous week, but most of that stuff, if not all of it, I think we got through, and it's just the backlog stuff that we have here. I'm trying to think through, and it's like, I just read these, I should know that, but any which way, we'll just talk about those real quick, and then on our main issue, of course, we'll talk about the pulls for this week, next week, so on and so forth. Bit of a tease for that as well. We also had the August previews that were launched, so I already took a look through all those, and then so we'll talk about those on the Saturday issue. But without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump right into it, shall we? And so, of course, we have our 10 books. I have it here on the video format so you can see it. These are the 10 books that we're going to review. I'll call it out for the audio folks as well. So we got Batman 157. We have Magik number 2. Scarlet Witch number 5. Red Before Black number 6. That is the finale to this book. Then Batman The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween number 8 out of 10. Then Phoenix number 8, X-Men number 11, The Uncanny X-Men number 10, X-Factor number 7, and then we're still journeying through the first volume of Local Man. This is going to be Local Man, technically issue number 4, but still part of the first volume in that book. So as you can tell, it's very heavy X-Men for the review, and the reason I'm trying to get through the X-Men so much is because that ends up being a lot of my backlogs. I don't know why I decided to do it. It was like, I think early on, where I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much X-Men, I feel like it all is going to coincide, like similar how the Krakoa era did as well. So it's like, let's just read all of these together when I kind of get into a mood. And this was before the podcast, and then started doing the podcast. Now I'm working through the backlog, and I just look through everything. Like Miles Morales is going down, Batman the Brave and the Bold is going down, Scarlet Witch has gone down, so much so that I'm in like kind of the final series of that. And then I look at the X-Men pile, and it's just like a mountain of them, from X-Men, Uncanny, X-Factor like you see, but then I also have Storm, Mystique, Magik was in there like you saw, a whole bunch of others as well. So I'm like, all right, let's just start trying to get our way through that, so that way the X-Men pile isn't like falling over in my bookshelf. So that's the reason for that. And you can imagine for the next couple of Omegas, it's going to be very X-Men focused. But anyways, into the reviews. Batman 157. So for this one, Rick, I should preface, in case you're brand new, for these reviews, I do spoil everything out of these stories, so just keep that in mind. I'll try to catch you up on where things are at thus far. We'll go and review the book itself. We'll talk about the rating that I give it. I use the League score out of 5 stars, and talk about League's rating as well, whether or not you should get into this book, and just kind of the overall thoughts. So that's the format. And then for the video, I go through on like this overhead camera that I have, and I'll show off the artwork a little bit too. So we'll start off with 157. Let me go ahead and pull up League here. So I gave it a 4. League gave it a 3.8. This is the conclusion of, I guess, kind of the fate of Gotham, if you want to call it. It says versus Commander Star, but it's actually versus like the KG Beast, who was revealed in the previous book. So just to get you caught up on where things are at right now, in this era of Batman, it seems like it was going to be more Bruce Wayne focused, but it actually ends up being more Batman in the last 2 to 3 issues, I'd say. We're at the point now where this is the big kind of blow off, if you will, for this arc. So we have Nigma, who's trying to go legit. He created some sort of crypto company. He was working with the Court of Owls, but this Court of Owl in particular he's working with actually ends up to be a Russian spy. And by providing whatever crypto information, it basically then became the key to where this device can now hack the U.S. nuclear codes. And the Russians are about to head back off to Russia. So Batman's on pursuit. And then Gordon is on pursuit of Nigma in Nigma's like kind of headquarters building. So that is where we're at and where we were left off on. And we immediately pick up right there. The first part of this book mostly focuses on Batman trying to stop the Russians from leaving Gotham kind of airspace. And so the jet's already up in the air. They're calling, they're high-fiving. They think that this is, job well done. Batman's right on their tail, starts heading up and catches up to them, and boards the plane basically, kicks everyone's ass, and now it's like, okay, well, Batman, obviously you don't kill, so what are you going to do here on trying to land this bird? And it is like one of the most insane movie-esque type scenes that I've seen in a comic book in quite a while, where you have Batman trying to figure out, how am I going to land the plane? And so his best course of action to save everyone is to land it like in the middle of an avenue in Gotham. So he calls down to the, commissioners. It's like, clear the streets. I need a whole block to clear this off. And so he's trying to do the math in his head as he has like seconds to try to figure this out. And somehow he's able to climb up on top of the plane. He shoots like some sticky, like bomb C4 stuff to both sides of the wing. Climbs up on top. It's like, I somehow have to get rid of these wings because it's too wide to fit onto the avenue. It just has to be the plane itself. But in order to do so, I have to shoot off the wings at the exact precise same time. Otherwise, the plane's going to veer off, of course, and then it's going to be a disaster, right? So he gets on top of it, and he literally pulls out the guns that the Russians had on the plane. And like he's saying, like, I hate doing this. Even holding them feels wrong. And he shoots them off at the exact same time, blows off the wings, and the plane lands down, almost like he's riding like a bull or, like one of those worms from Dune, like as it lands into Gotham. Just absolutely ridiculous. Saves everyone, and then he immediately gets into the fight with the KG Beast, who he's trying to rile up a whole bunch of rebellions and riots in the streets. And so Batman takes care of him pretty quickly. All while that's happening, Gordon is up fighting Nigma. Their building is like kind of coming and crashing down. So Gordon kind of actually reaches down and saves Nigma. And now Batman has stopped the Russians from leaving. He stopped the KG Beast, and Gordon now has Nigma as well. So Nigma ends up kind of walking free because there's really nothing that they have against him, and he looks like he's going to be able to set something else up in his company. So he already like made bail and everything, so he's good to go. And then Batman and Gordon are trying to figure out next steps here. So Gordon, remember, was cheating on the mayor's wife. The mayor is now dead. He still blames himself for everything that happened. Batman's like, you can't do that. And to catch you up there, he killed the mayor, but he was wearing these glasses, which were made by Nigma's company, and it had some sort of chip in there that then caused him to actually kill the mayor. So it's not actually his fault, but he feels like it is. And he reveals this little tidbit of, he was all pissed off at the mayor, and when he was pointing the gun at him, the mayor punched him in the face, and it actually broke the glasses. But he said, I was still mad, and I still shot, even though, you would think, boom, the glasses were broken and then the chip would have worn off. But Batman's like, no, it probably had some lasting effect. It definitely wasn't you. But still Gordon, it's like tugging at him. So he's like, you know what, I think I'm just going to rejoin the force and see what happens from there. So that's his decision, and then Batman just kind of goes back onto the streets and does his whole thing. So that takes place. The other thing that's been happening in this arc too is this B-plot of, there's been this long-lost brother of Bruce that is coming out of the woodwork and suing Bruce for half of the Wayne Enterprises empire because he believes that he's entitled to it. And sure enough, it is kind of corroborated that his father did work at a different hospital, and he did work at the same time that the mother, as far as like the test would be, was also working there. So it's kind of adding up. It's revealed who this guy is. He's a nurse. He actually ends up being like a really good guy. And he's like, yeah, I was kind of coerced by this like rich group to try to do this and like stick it to you. But I really had no intention of going after your riches. I see. And he's talking to Bruce Wayne, not to Batman. And he has no idea that he's Batman. It's like, I see the lifestyle that you live, right? Constant scrutiny, constant stress, playboy. It just looks like you have nothing going on for you really, other than like trying to like barely survive. And it like, though you have all the riches, it seems like your life is actually a nightmare, and I want nothing to do with it. And it seems like you're actually a garbage, horrible person. Not knowing that he's actually Batman, right? But, Bruce is like, hey, I totally understand. And to be honest, if you were my brother, I would give you half of this stuff, like, no problem. It didn't have to be like this whole big old secret thing. He's like, it's fine. I'm dropping it anyways. I don't even want it. And then he gives him the test, and it turns out he's not even his brother in the first place. So it's like kind of a weird thing of like, oh, so I guess they cheated with him, but maybe he has some other father in the end. Kind of weird and bizarre, but that, I guess, ends up just being nothing, and Bruce doesn't lose any bit of the company. So that was a weird ending to that. But overall, I still did give it a 4. I mean, just that scene of landing that airplane was pretty dope and epic. So let's go and show off some of that artwork. Like I said, most of the beginning portion of the book does take place with the fighting above, and this is like the KG Beast as he's inciting all the riots. And then you have Nigma. Here's where this guy got shot by Batman, who was the spy, and I was like, Batman? Like, basically, he shot his bullets. Batman reflected it back at him. I was like, I feel like this kind of defeated the purpose of, your whole vision, but I guess it doesn't count, and he was fine. But here he is with the guns, gets on top of the freaking plane and shoots off on both sides, and then lands this plane right in the middle of this avenue, like the most insane thing ever. Jumps off the plane and then immediately goes into fighting the KG Beast. So all of that took place. Here's where you have Jim and Nigma, and Jim was able to save him there. The fighting here takes place some more, and then Bruce is able to win. So a week later, this is Bruce confronting the guy who claimed to be his brother, but he wasn't actually, and then Gordon and Batman trying to figure out what is all next. So yeah, it's Batman 157 again. I gave it a 4. Lee gave it a 3.8. We're already at 160 something. Not the time to jump in. Actually, the book after this is probably the time to jump in, and this is the end of the arc of 157. So if you're like, oh, I see 158 in the stores, yes, 157, I would say no. So that is Batman 157. And then next up here, get organized. We got Magik, number 2. So this is a backlog. This came out on February 12th. I gave it 3.5. Lee gave it a 3.9. I'd say for this book, it was between 3.5 and a 4. Definitely wasn't terrible, but I didn't like what they did here. So Magik is, not that she's pissed off at the X-Men, but I guess she's like wanting more. And she hears about this funeral. She goes and attends it. Turns out that there's something more to it, and that this demon Liminal is trying to be released. So there are 5 different seals. This was the first seal at this funeral. The deceased person also had a friend. That friend had a grandmother, and turns out that she was like a protector of these seals to prevent Liminal from entering into the real world. So this big fight takes place. The grandmother dies, passes on the responsibility to the kid. And now they have to defend all these seals and prevent them from being broken so Liminal doesn't enter the world. So the first one's already broken. Now we got to stop the rest of them, right? So Magik and Cal is his name, go to Tokyo because that's what you do. And I guess that's where the next seal is. And so they're trying to figure it all out. They get invited to this party, and they also hear that people are going missing. This all happened very recently, right at the timing of when the funeral took place. So it's like, oh, okay, there's something suspicious here. We'll go check it out. They do check it out. It's a big party, and it's like a headline by some band that's like also relatively new. And sure enough, the band comes on stage, and the lead singer is the deceased friend of Cal, who's been, possessed and brought back to life by, we assume, Liminal, to then also go after these seals. So a bunch of fighting takes place with Magik. Cal, not so much, because just starting to learn what his powers are and his abilities that were passed down from his grandmother. And so he's got to learn like all this magic. So it's mostly, he has to learn the magic, like the actual art of it. And Magik, the character, is the one that does most of the fighting. And so she is able to defeat this person, and which is difficult to see for Cal, because it's like, this was my friend, now repossessed. I get it that he's already dead. There's nothing we can do about it, but just to see this all happen and take place is pretty jarring. And then on top of that, at the end of all of this, they get sucked down into either limbo or hell or something along those lines, and they're summoned by Liminal himself. And so now they're going to be confronted by Liminal, but in whatever realm Liminal is in, not on Earth. So that's a cliffhanger. So that was a cool cliffhanger, but like the whole repossessed thing of like, why would this guy be, the X-Men are up in Alaska, now suddenly repossessed and then went to Tokyo? It's like, I don't know. That just seemed like a little bit of a stretch. And then we have this whole thing of like Magik. Does she use like her powers of like the dark side of her, like the demonic side, and like debating whether or not to do that? I was like, okay, I think we could have just like gone right into it. So it's kind of weird of like some of the exposition and the explanation around that, but I mean, that's why I gave it a 3.5. So that's Magik number 2. Not really the time to jump in, I would say, at this point, but let's go ahead and show off some of the artwork so you can take a look. Overall, I'd say standard as far as, Marvel is concerned. Very wordy book as well. Sometimes that's good. I think in this instance, it actually did it a bit of a disservice. A lot of the artwork could have done the storytelling for us, but that's okay. But it's demonic, right? So a lot of reds and blacks, especially black as you get from Magik and a lot of her outfits. But you get these like kind of cooler demonic scenes and fights and fire and different blasts and things like that. So pretty good from a fight scene perspective. But the story was just a little bit confusing. That didn't bring it up to a 4 for me personally. And then here at the very end is where Magik is then summoned by Liminal. So yeah, it was a okay book. We'll see what happens next, and if now being confronted by Liminal will change things for me. But that is Magik number 2. I gave it a 3.5. Lee gave it a 3.9. Next up here is going to be the Scarlet Witch number 5. So this one I gave a 4. And then League gave it a 4.1. So right in the realm of League. For this one, this is a good one to jump into. It is right after the arc of everything that took place previously. So for this one, Scarlet Witch was facing the Griever, I want to say was her name, and they just defeated her with the help of Hexfinder. And Hexfinder resurrected the door. What's the door called again? It has a specific name. I can't remember. The Griever at the end of all things, which is great. The Last Door, that's what it's called. And so the Last Door is basically for anyone, anywhere in the universe. They have no hope. They have nowhere else to turn. A door will appear in front of them if they walk through it, and they basically end up in front of the Scarlet Witch because only she can basically help them. But now Scarlet's like, okay, I am actually going to turn things around, because when the Griever was defeated and when Hexfinder brought back the Last Door, in all the kerfuffle and everything that took place, Chthon was then released. And I might have been saying it differently, but that's how it's pronounced, Chthon. 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 Has been released into the world, and they're trying to find where Chthon is. So some sort of demon. And Wanda's like, okay, I'm just going to go on the offensive and actually walk through the Last Door. So that's what she does, and then she ends up in Hell's Kitchen, New York, which explains Daredevil on the front. So it ends up being a buddy, not cop, but, buddy book where both of them are trying to piece together a mystery around what is happening at a subway station, and it has some links to Chthon. So they follow this lady that was chased by some sort of demon thing into the subway. The lady's now safe, and they see it's like this brick that is possessed somehow. And Scarlet Witch immediately knows this is the Bricklayer, is his name, who is almost a servant in a way of Chthon. So sure enough, it is the Bricklayer. He reveals himself and says, Chthon's not released. It's myself, it's other servants. We're going to be out there and going after them and serving Chthon to make him more powerful. So obviously Daredevil and Scarlet Witch are like, we're going to stop you. But as they do that, there's a subway that then shows up, and all the citizens and civilians in there are possessed by the Bricklayer, start going after them. So you have to, two things that are going on. One, stop the Bricklayer. Two, prevent the innocent people from getting hurt. So that's where kind of the duality between the two of them kind of kicks in. And you have, I think it's mostly Daredevil doing crowd control, and then Scarlet Witch taking care of the Bricklayer. They are able to banish the Bricklayer, and they ensure that every last brick is taken care of. So the Bricklayer is no more, which is good. All the people are then cured and tended to as they need to. And then Wanda heads back to the shop. Daredevil thanks for all the help. When she heads back to the shop, she opens the door, and instead of Darcy, her assistant, in there, she sees Agatha Harkness, sitting on one of her desks as the cliffhanger, and who the hell knows what Agatha's going to want next. You just never know. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it indifferent? Just kind of like, honestly, Thor, Loki, Scarlet Witch, Agatha is basically kind of the same thing that you have going on there. So who knows? Maybe she's here to help. Maybe she's not. We'll have to find out in the next one. So again, I gave it a 4. It is a good time to jump in. We have this whole Chthon thing going on. It'll probably take us all the way to the end of Scarlet Witch. I think there are 10 issues in here. But all this is complete. This one came out back in October of 2024. So nearly a year ago at this point. But this is all wrapped up. And I think right now we are in the midst of Wanda and Vision is the current run that is actually going on right now. So I would recommend it if you can find it, and if you're interested, this would be the time to get in. But I mean, again, at this point, you can just pick up the trades, and that would get you to where you need to be as well. So Scarlet Witch number 5, I gave it a 4. Lee gave it a 4.1. Then next up here is Red Before Black number 6. So this is a Boom Studios joint, and this is the last one of this series. So I gave it a 3.5. Lee gave it a 3.8. Pretty disappointed in the ending of this book. Kind of confusing, but I'll see what I can do to try to get you caught up on it. Basically, what you have here is 2 people. So you have Val and Leo. So Val is the brunette here, and then Leo is the blonde. And so Val is like our main protagonist. We find out throughout the issues, basically she was in the military. She had this whole thing that took place where she was out in Iraq serving, and they were trying to get a citizen out. She promised the citizen, I'll get you out, I'll get you out. And then as that happened, there's this big attack that took place, and she died. And so she couldn't live with that guilt and the PTSD. She comes back. She doesn't really get the treatment that she needs to. You can imagine, like, mental health care is not in the place where it is, even today, is better as far as awareness, maybe not 100% where it needs to be. Certainly wasn't then when people were coming back from the Iraq war. So she's just not taken care of properly, falls into, some pretty messed up stuff, drugs, alcohol, so on and so forth, gets arrested, basically becomes an informant for the FBI in order to, reduce her sentence on whatever's going on. And by doing that, she's working with who she used to work with previously as a drug dealer. He doesn't know that she's an informant, and trying to get jobs. The first job was trying to bust a inside ring person. Like, she's working for the gang now, but under the guise that she's actually like a double agent, right? And the first thing that the gang or the head, kingpin wanted was to stop Leo, because Leo kept stealing drugs and going into business for herself. So that's how they met. So at first Val's going after Leo, and then Leo realizes it, and then it's like kind of a cat and mouse thing. Then they end up linking together, and then they're both kind of on the run together. So at this point now, Leo has some crazy family that's also been hunting them down, who's part of the crew that Val has been running with too. So they're in on it, or they just basically sold out Leo, their cousin, for money. And so Val and Leo are now at the point where they've kind of reached the end of the line here, and they randomly, now we're in this issue, decide to go to a psychic, not ward, but like seminar, workshop thing, tarot cards type deal, to learn more about themselves. And they basically find out that they're kind of soulmates and that they were meant to be together. So come out of that trance or experience feeling like closer to one another. But when that happens, the FBI now has caught up to them. So the FBI breaks in, and they have this whole standoff, and they're like, Val and Leo, you have to come in, right? You've been on the run. Val, you haven't actually done your part, and there's all the craziness going on. As soon as it seems like the FBI and stuff catch up to them, then they run off. So that whole standoff happens. Then one of Leo's crazy cousins shows up on the side of the building and shoots out at Leo, still trying to kill her, even though the FBI is right there. It was like, that doesn't make any sense, but that's the story. That's what they decided to do. And so Val decides to jump in front of Leo and takes the bullet. And so when she takes the bullet, she gets hit. And part of this book is there's all these hallucinogenic episodes that take place. So Val kind of goes into that place, and they talk of the Red Before Black for the snake. One is there's a song about it of one's poisonous and one's not. And so Val, she's shot, everyone's trying to get around her. Then it's Val just in this meadow by herself. And it's just whatever the one is the more venomous, that's the type of snake that's around her, insinuating that she died. And that's the end of the book. That's all we get for a conclusion. So that was pretty weak, personally. I see that we're trying to make it, kind of poetic in the end. And oh, this is what that all means, but it just didn't do it for me. I don't know why they went to that psychic ward. I don't know why that guy would randomly shoot with a bunch of FBI agents in the way. It doesn't really make sense for Val to sacrifice herself because, just now they're kind of getting together, although they were teasing it. It just feels rushed is the way that I would define it. But that's it. So let's go show you some of the artwork here. Fairly simplistic on that as well. So you'd imagine some of the story is going to do most of the carrying, and it just didn't for me. So yeah, I don't know. It was kind of a whiff overall, I'd say. This is the FBI going after them. This is kind of the experience that they see during like the psychic thing where they realize that they're soulmates and meant to be together. But then sure enough, that's when the FBI shows up. Here's where her crazy cousin goes and shoots. Val jumps in the middle, and then here is basically where they say, yeah. So red before black, okay Jack, red before yellow, kills a fellow, and I think the snake here was like a red before yellow. Yeah, red, then yellow, so not good. That means they're dead. So not good at all, but that's the end. It's red before black. I was enjoying the book, but you had a long break between now and the end, and then this feels really rushed. So I'm just overall disappointed. I had like higher hopes for the book. Initially it didn't come in even though I ordered it, and I was almost like, damn, well, maybe it would have been better off if it just ended at issue 5 for me. But either way, we finished it. Obviously wouldn't recommend it, and honestly I wouldn't recommend the full series overall. I'd say just kind of a whiff. If the conclusion was better, maybe I could give a stronger recommendation, but it's a pass for me. So again, red before black, I gave it a 3.5. League gave it a 3.8. Then next up here we have Batman, The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween. This is issue number 8. I gave this one a 3.5. League gave it a 4. It was just a confusing book, and I think another one that's been delayed a little bit. So we have Batman and we have Gordon. They are trying to investigate the holiday killer. So it's like, could be that, it could be calendar, but it's like the holiday killer is like what they're going after. And basically this person will kill someone on a holiday, right? So all the holidays throughout the year, and the way that they're trying to make this book meta is all the books are released around a holiday. So if you're reading it in April, it's going to be around Easter. If you're reading it in January, it was New Year's. And so this one was Father's Day. Obviously, it's pretty delayed, but that is the day that they were trying to hit for this one. And we're at the point now where it's like trying to figure out who's done it, and it's confusing. But there's evidence that basically it's one of the Harveys that did it, and more of the evidence is pointed towards, one of the Dents has done it, and it's pointing towards Dent's wife. And so where the evidence then points them is that they're hiding up in Falcone's mansion. And this mansion is very run down and completely falling apart. But both Gordon and Batman show up at the mansion, and they start working their way through. And sure enough, both the Dents are down there in the basement. They have one of the Falcones like tied up. I don't really recall as to why and what they're doing with him, but I think everyone's still like trying to figure out like who exactly is doing this and why. But Batman and Gordon, they get to the point where they're getting into the deep parts of the home, and they can kind of tell that everyone's in the basement. But that's when Solomon Grundy comes out. So who you can see pictured here is basically Mrs. Dent's like protector, keeper, if you will. And it's like mummified zombie, come back to life, very difficult to stop. And so he just starts tearing down the house trying to get at Batman and Gordon. And so the whole house comes basically crumbling down, is the thing. And so everyone like barely gets out alive, and everyone just kind of ends up in different spots. When that takes place, Catwoman is also trying to figure out what all is going on here. And so she goes after a Falcone family member, but not the same one. It's like it's like a nephew or something. And she's interrogating him and trying to figure out who is the holiday killer. So that is what all takes place. Oh, I know. The Harveys, they were interrogating Calendar Man. That's who they were. Because they like, this is the killer, right? It's Calendar Man. He's like, no. I do something on a calendar, whereas the other one does specifically holidays. It's like totally different. It's like, is it? So it's just, we're at the point where I probably should have dropped the book, to be perfectly honest with you, but I'm just sticking it out. That's where we're at here. And so from the art, it's more of a noir style, very dark, very gritty, is the way that it's all kind of set up here. But it's confusing. Like, there are too many twists and turns to be able to follow. It's like, I don't even know what the freaking trail is anymore. And they're saying, it's one person, but it's like, is it? And honestly, I can just tell when it comes in, and in the end, it's like, yeah, it was this person all along. I'm going to be like, you could have said it was Jesus Christ. And I'd be like, okay, that doesn't make any sense, but fine. But even if it's like the person who I think it is, and they say it, it's like, okay, fine. Like, it's none of this feels like a big reveal and feels rewarding. It's just like, we're just saying it might be this person, it might be this person, it might be this person. Oh, nope, it's back to this person, but I just have no freaking clue. Like, why? So I think about it, I'm like trying to push myself more towards a 3. But the series has just been disappointing. Not the time to jump in at this point. And overall, it's a big skip, I would say. First couple issues were interesting, but I think I was just certainly more in my era of like just buy the book and write it out. And I probably should have dropped this one. But here we are. That was a cool concept. Release a book on every holiday? That seemed cool. But it's not living up to those expectations at all. So that's Batman The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween, number 8. I gave it a 3.5. Lee gave it a 4. Then we have Phoenix, number 8. This was a dope book. And Lee was off on me on this, but I liked it a lot. So I gave this one a 4.5. Lee gave it a 3.7. Brutal. But I thought it was awesome. So this book takes immediately place after the previous, where we have Phoenix, all powerful, goes throughout the galaxy. She went to try to save a planet inadvertently, she tried to like stop a star from exploding. That's what it was going to take off a whole bunch of people. But Pericus got out of like the black hole that was within the star or around the star, destroyed this whole planet, except for one girl. Took that girl, basically made her his disciple, and she's now just been going after revenge, wants to go after the Phoenix. Get to the point now where Pericus has teamed up with Thanos. Thanos is trying to take over the whole galaxy. He's using like this eye of whatever it is to create all this influence. Phoenix teamed up with Captain Marvel, Rocket Raccoon, Nova, and Surf. Brought the fight to Thanos and the Black Order. And in the fight and the struggle, the eye was particularly fixated on Phoenix and Jean Grey. It was going to kill her. And so Phoenix and Jean Grey are tied to Adani. So she lent out her powers to Adani, and that did break everything up. But now Adani has the power of the Phoenix, which is insanely powerful. And so it was like, that's problematic. But the Phoenix then came flying back to Jean. But when that happened, there's like this big rift, and Jean ended up in some completely different realm, it looked like. And we pick up there of where she was dropped off at. And it's actually on the moon is what it looks like. And she sees a whole bunch of X-Men. She sees Scott, I think Wolverine, kind of the core crew. And then she sees another version of Phoenix, and they start fighting. And she ends up then fighting the Phoenix. So she's the Phoenix fighting the Phoenix. While that takes place, Adani and Pericus are talking, and Pericus is pissed off at her. He's like, you had the power, why did you let it go? It's like, it was too powerful for me. I don't really know what I'm doing. But I can still sense it. I can still feel it. So Pericus is like, okay, tap into that, and then summon the rest of my disciples. So that's what she tries to do. And you can tell she like misfires a whole bunch of stuff. So she's struggling with these abilities, and doesn't really have full control of the Phoenix. Then Rocket Raccoon and Nova. It's not Surf or Captain America. It's just those two. But they see where Phoenix is, and it's actually like this big old cocoon that she's in. So they keep like firing at it, but nothing is happening. And so once they realize that, oh, this is actually a cocoon, sure enough, the fighting within starts to become a lot clearer of like, this is a remember who the fuck you are. Remember who you are type moment, right? You're the Phoenix. And you're the beginning, you're the end, and you're all of it. And so whatever happens, like, you're eternal. And just the whole pep talk that happens throughout this was so epic, and that's what really pushed it up to a 4.5 for me. And so sure enough, Jean Grey, the Phoenix, remembers who the F she is, comes out of the cocoon, and then now she's ready to go on the attack, to go against Pericus. So it was dope. It's like a resurrection and, reborn of the Phoenix, basically. So I liked it a lot. You could say, we've read and seen this book before, but then look at the artwork on this, right? So a bunch of flames and fires. Obviously, it's the Phoenix that we're talking about here. So this is where she's on the moon in that cocoon and like not really understanding what's happening on. But like, look at the artwork here. It's like freaking phenomenal with the fire and flame that's all happening. So here's Adani using and wielding her power a little bit, and Pericus is like, you had it, why'd you lose it? And here Adani is like just talking, and then unintentionally just throws this like flamethrower plume of fire at him, which doesn't hurt because he's a god, but still nonetheless. Oh, and you can see here I have a page that unfortunately fell out too. I'm like, damn, I really enjoyed this book. Like, why did it have to happen in this one? Here's a Rocket Raccoon and Nova like basically realize that it's a cocoon at this point. And then boom, Phoenix fighting the Phoenix. It's like, how dope of a scene is that? That's pretty cool. And then some more of that fighting basically takes place, and you're having the pep talk and the realization of who she is. Adani doing her thing, raising up the rest of Pericus's crew. And then Phoenix at the end here emerges from the cocoon even 10 times more badass than she looked before, and ready to take the fight to Pericus. So I thought it was dope. A good one of, I think it'd actually be fine for you to jump in here if you wanted to. Getting ready and preparing for the big fight that's about to take place next. So I enjoyed the hell out of it. So that's Phoenix number 8. I gave it a 4.5. League, though, only gave it a 3.7. League. Alrighty. Then we get to X-Men number 11. And this one, I gave it a 4. League gave it a 4 as well.
Nailed it. I know. Thank you. Moving on.
And I was probably more between 4 and a 3.5. I basically have this variant issue here where you have more of like a chibi style between Scott and Jean Grey, which looked pretty dope. But this takes place after what was such an awesome issue in issue number 10, where basically Scott was like, you guys want to fight us? We're just going to fight back with the same amount of force and power and escalate it even further, right? So you want to play this kind of Cold War game and point your nukes at us, we'll point the nukes right back. So that was awesome. But this then starts like kind of the next mission, if you will. So there's this spaceship crash lands in Canada. These guys are in Alaska, remember? And the X-Men respond to it because whatever came out of the ship is beelining it straight towards where they are in Alaska. And like, hey, this city and town has already dealt with enough, and you had one that showed up before, which that was the whole conversation of everything. So it's like, we just don't need now aliens to show up too, and then they're going to blame us for that, and so on and so forth. So Scott and the team show up, and it turns out it's Corsair, who is from the Phoenix and from multiple books as well, but that's like Scott's father. And so like Corsair, and at first like people don't know how to feel. Scott is happy to see Corsair, but Corsair is kind of a dick. So he is effectively the Captain Jack Sparrow like of the Marvel universe, like just kind of finds all this dumb luck, kind of an asshole. He's going to swindle you, he's going to steal, but he's kind of this lovable guy in the end, right? So he is basically, that's who Corsair is. And when they realize that it was Corsair and everything's fine, then a second ship comes in, and it's like this big old like whale Leviathan looking thing. I think it's trying to be a take on those big whale things that would fight in the MCU that Thanos had. So it's one of those, but it's like completely lobotomized and like retrofitted into a big old spaceship that the Skrulls have. It's the Skrulls of the Kree. I always forget which is which. But either way, that's who then shows up. And Corsair's trying to warn Scott, but he's like, oh, clearly these guys are just after you and you came to us for protection. That's fine. We'll go ahead and go after them. So just mobilizes the whole X-Men, like, all right, let's just go after, start fighting. And they do, and they keep fighting, and then Corsair's like, you're not listening. He goes in, talks to Omega Kid. He's like, patch me in through the telepath. I gotta talk to him. Scott, listen, please. It's not actually they're after me. Yes, I do have a bounty on my head because I'm Corsair. Of course I do. But mine is only for 1.2 million credits. They spent over $2 billion or 2 billion credits to get here. It's not me that they're after when I'm only worth 1.2. They're after a different Summers. They're after you. And it's like, oh shit. So then come to the realization that this huge ass armada is going to start coming after them, and what exactly are they going to do next, you know? So it's more than just this one ship, and actually Corsair was not looking for protection, but coming down to warn Scott and the rest of, here's what's going to come to Earth, and there's a pretty penny on his head, and I guess we'll figure out why. I imagine it's got something to do with Jean Grey as the Phoenix would be my guess, but we'll have to wait and see. The other thing about this is at the end of this, I think it's where the X-Manhunt starts to take place next. And that's where you have all these different books. And I think it's a narrative thread with Charles Xavier. And it's like an 8 or 6 part, something like that. And I have most of the books, but not all of them. So we'll see how much I get through that. But this is like kind of, the next one I should say is going to be the start of that. So we'll flip into this. And Actually, I'm going to flip to the end because maybe it was here or maybe it was, I could be mixing it up with X Factor. No, it was X Factor where they brought it up. I'm sorry. But either way, I think in the next one, that will also be featured there as well. So here's where the crash landing kind of takes place. Of course, the X-Men, they're still taking in these people that are getting their mutant powers later in life from 3K. And then here's where they start responding to everything and they run into Corsair. Hug it out, but Magik's pissed because of something that happened a couple of years ago. Here's where you have this new Leviathan beast looking thing coming down, and they're starting to bring the fight to that. Corsair then gives the warning that they're all coming after Scott, and they got to get ready for this big old fight. Oh, and then that's what it is at the end of this one. Then Alpha Flight is the one who are coming to also support the X-Men in this endeavor. I think Alpha Flight is like specifically from Canada. So that is what is going to be the next one for that. So yeah, that is X-Men number 11. Again, I gave it a 4. Lee gave it a 4 as well. So the next up here is Uncanny X-Men number 10. And this one, I gave it a 4. Lee gave it a 3.8. Definitely between a 3.5 and a 4. But I led more towards a 4 because of how it ended. At first, I was thinking, this is probably not the best. But how it ended kind of saved it in the end for me. So what we have here is Uncanny. Takes place in Louisiana. It has Rogue, Gambit, Wolverine, Nightcrawler, Jubilee. Those are like the main X-Men. And they're all taking care of these 4 mutants who were never part of the academy or anything. But, trying to train them up. And the previous issue, we basically gave each one a mentor of kid to adult X-Men to look after. And they sent the kids to the mall, do some shopping, try to be regular kids and all that stuff. While that happened, the Grey Malkin prison, they have this project that's going on where they're trying to create sentinel canines. And those canines have this AI in it, of course, that goes rogue. They can't shut it down. And it just starts targeting mutants. So it runs off and ends up at the mall where the kids are, and the kids start fighting. And so one of the mutant kids, he's the one that's like both in death and life, and he keeps like flipping back and forth. He's the one that dies. So I was like, oh, that's kind of a weird way to end it, because even if he dies, it really doesn't matter. He can just come back. Well, it takes a big story beat in this one. So we pick up immediately there. All the kids are trying to fight him off. Calico in particular has a pretty cool spot here where she can be like the Human Torch type deal, and her horse like will catch on as fire as well, and she like charges into battle. So she looks pretty epic. The speedster that they have, I guess she knows medicine some way, somehow, and she's actually trying to heal the Death Kid. And as she's trying to do that, he's like got a collapsed lung, and they go to like a tattoo shop to get a needle to try to like help him out. And it's like, oh my gosh, is he going to make it? Is he not? He ends up making it, which is good. So they get back into the fight. And all the X-Men kids are actually doing a pretty good job of like holding their own, but things are getting pretty dangerous. And now these AI dogs too, as they're getting beat up, or the AI is starting to change on it as well. And they're not just targeting mutants, then they start targeting civilians. At the same time, there's like a TV broadcast that went out. So Logan, Jubilee, Nightcrawler, they're aware of all this that's taking place. And so they go in, they jump in, and they help. And now that civilians are being targeted, everyone is jumping in, doing their part. The Death Kid has a pretty big part in it. I guess they're part K9, so he taps into that, and he's able to stop them there. Logan's shredding up a whole bunch. Calico, of course, was doing her thing. So everyone in the end looks pretty strong. And the news is there, and they all look like heroes. And, you know, this is actually a positive, bright spot for the mutants. So, of course, the people at the Grey Malkin prison are all pissed off because they're trying to, you know, they're Orcus 2.0. And they're like, oh my gosh, we let out this AI, we endangered civilians, and we actually made the X-Men and mutants look even better. So it was just a catastrophe across the board, right? And they lost this technology, the money, everything. Literal worst case scenario here. And so all that takes place, and that's basically the issue until the very end. So no Rogue and no Gambit in this. Until the end, you find out they were on date night, and so they're like, oh, let's check in. No, forget it. Let's just kind of hang out and do their own thing. So that's what they do. And at the very, very end, you see like this monster beast arm that's like looking around some sort of corner, and it's going to have something to do with this is now the mutant hunt thing that's going to take place. So let's go ahead and look through some of the artwork here. What I liked about it was the end, right? Of how, okay, now we're making the mutants look to be in a positive light instead of like the constant like beat down of like mutants suck, blah blah blah, they're the worst thing ever. So here's where you have Calico, right? Like into like this flaming horse Pegasus looking thing, like just freaking dope. So that looked good. And the fighting that's taking place here, and her charging into battle against these K9 Sentinels. So that looked good as well. That would be an advertisement we got there. But we have just some more of the fighting. Then we get Logan, Jubilee, and Nightcrawler getting into the action as well. They're taking out a whole bunch of these units and then praised in the end, which is good. And then here's where we have Rogue and Gambit doing their thing. And then you have, this, I don't know, freaky looking arm hanging out here. So then it's, next is the X-Man hunt is when that begins. And we have a whole timeline here. So part 1 is going to be Uncanny X-Men 11. Then Nyx I don't have, but Storm 6 I have, X-Men 13 I have, and then what did I just review? I just reviewed 11. So we got 12, and then 13 is like the next one. X-Factor 8 I have, then Exceptional X-Men, I think I have this one. I do not have X-Force, and then Omega Finale. I can't remember if I picked that one up or not. I feel like I did. So I'm not going to have the full story on it, but you know how comics are. Like, they catch you up a whole bunch on everything, and we'll get the gist of it. But it's interesting how this, like, kind of goes throughout, like, all the different ones. If you would have swapped out, like, if this would have been Mystique, I would have had it. If it would have been Phoenix, I would have had it. But, yeah, I'm not on X-Force, I'm not on Nyx, but all the other ones I am on. So we'll catch a majority of this story that's about to come up next. So yeah, that is the Uncanny X-Men number 10. Again, I gave it a 4. Lee gave it a 3.8. And then second to last here is going to be X-Factor number 7. So this one, I know for me, for X-Factor, I've been a lot higher than League previously, but I was in line with League on this one. I gave it a 3.5. League gave it a 3.4. It was definitely a miss, and just a weird overall book. So we have, at this point, Havoc is no longer the team lead anymore. He was kicked out. Angel's actually brought back, and Angel was hurt in like literally the very first mission. So he's finally back and taking over the squad. This is the start of One World under Doom. And so with that, Doom is obviously now Emperor, and the X-Factors are tasked with going to a planet, an island that is completely run and governed by AI, like a super intelligence. They call it the paperclip, which is hilarious. Obviously, it's a spoof on Clippy, everyone's favorite from Microsoft all those years ago. If you don't know, just look it up. And if you don't know, you're pretty young. So I find that hilarious, but that is what they're trying to go after there. And so it's this crazy, super intelligent AI that just does all the rules and the laws of this island. I guess there was a lot of appeal for like a bunch of criminals and stuff to just end up there. And you'd have to implant a chip into your head, sign this EULA that basically says you are going to agree whatever the laws are that change. And by the way, there is a failsafe in here that if for whatever reason the AI needs you to defend the island, you will defend the island, which is revealed later in the book, but might as well just tell you now. So the X-Factor are tasked with destroying that AI engine because they don't want it in the hands of Doom. So that's fine. X-Factors, they go out there, and when they land, they meet another mutant task force group that they're supposed to be teaming up with. The X-Factors, though, are getting pushed out, and the other group is like, you guys will be the distraction. We'll actually go in and destroy it. So X-Factors, you just basically create a blackout, and then we'll go and destroy them. So the X-Factors do it, and they actually do it pretty successfully. The other group, though, they go in and they get to the engine, and rather than destroying it, they decide to steal it. And their whole thought is like, screw destroying this. We can profit on this. And I'm sure Doom will want it, or someone that's close to Doom will want it. So they go and they take it, and remember, this is an island, and they go back to the ships. So they see the two ships, the evil group and the X-Factor group ship. So the evil group decides to destroy the X-Factor group ship. And here's where it gets weird. Because on the evil group ship, one of the X-Factors was left behind. But he was on the evil guy's ship and flew off and went to go and pick the X-Factors up. And then they just left. So a couple plot holes here. Why was he not on the X-Factor ship? Why was he on the evil one? That doesn't make much sense. Unless I missed it and they like blew up their own and then they were going to just steal the X-Factor one. But that doesn't make much sense of why they would do that either. I know it actually, that's not what happened, because they're like, oh yeah, it looks like they finished up early and they're getting some support for us because he thought that they came down. And so then it was like, okay, well, why would they would have picked you up in the different ship instead of the own ship? Like that didn't make any sense either. So that was like a huge miss. And then the last thing is like, well, they didn't verify that the thing was destroyed. They're just like, we think the mission's done and let's just leave. It's like, too many holes in that section there. You could have made that work some sort of way well, but I don't know if they just wanted to wrap it up. I don't know what the hell happened. Why you had a good point there, blow up the other ship, but like the way that all the other events cascaded from there was just odd, in my opinion. So that's what screwed it up. But that is the story. So we'll go into some of the artwork here. Here's basically the mission briefing. Here's this island and the paperclip super intelligence that is creating all the rules. Angel coming back. Here's where they're all going to the island, and you got the two teams kind of talking to each other there. And then the distraction that takes place where they create the blackout. Oh, the other thing that does happen, and the reason for the implant, is it could sense like a threat, and so all the citizens were then going after them, but they were able to like short circuit the implants without harming anyone. So that was taken care of fairly easily, which was good. Couple meta commentaries here of like how AI is ruining everything, but the only thing that AI seems to do is just linger on the past, because that's what it needs, right? Just like historical data, and in the past is only where things are made mistakes. So if it wants to take over the mistakes, then that's fine. Let's just focus on the future where we can correct those mistakes. I was like, damn, that's freaking bars right there. Okay, X-Factor. So like, what do you have to worry about? We shouldn't be lingering in the past anyways, and let it replace it with that. You know, obviously that's a very small subset, very hot topic. I'm not trying to get into any sort of political debate, but I just thought that was pretty interesting. So yeah, good book okay book that you have here with some bars in it. Overall, X-Factor, I like personally. I understand people do not for the most part, and it's been getting pretty poor ratings, but for me, it's been good. On this, 626 ratings is quite a bit. So it's definitely getting read, which is good, and I'm going to stick with it. It's one of my favorite of the X-Men that's actually taken place here. So again, that's X-Factor number 7. I gave it a 3.5. Lee gave it a 3.4. I guess you could jump in here from a story perspective, but I just wouldn't say jump into this one because the book wasn't good. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Last, but not least, is Local Man number 4. So this book, again, is the part of the trade. This is the 4 out of 5. Sorry, not the final one. I gave it a 4. Lee gave it a 4.4, and it was good. I wasn't between the 4 and a 4.5. I was pretty clear, like, yeah, this is just kind of a 4, was my thought behind it. Catch you up. We have Local Man. He was part of what's called like a Gen 3 squad. It almost seems like superheroes are like, in this universe anyways, like some sort of academy where you actually train, you get recruited. It's like a professional team is the best way to think about it. And our main character here, Crossjack, was kicked out of the team. We find out he was kicked out because of like some accusations of like adultery and cheating. And first couple of issues we're just kind of learning about what all that is. It gets much more clear in this issue. But Crossjack heads back to his hometown in Wisconsin. People kind of hate him because he's getting smeared in the media. But when he goes back, one of his arch nemesis, comes back as well, and they start fighting. But then later, that villain ends up in jail, and then he's killed in jail. And when he's killed, now there's like this investigation going on. They're like, what the hell could have happened? Crossjack's trying to figure it out. We're trying to figure out who this killer is. So then there's another member of his squad. And so just like there's these professional hero squads, there's professional villain ones as well. She comes back. She wanted to pay her respects. Crossjack thinks it was her. It was not. She gets killed as well. So now we're at the point where both are dead. Crossjack's still trying to figure this all out, and he's trying to follow clues that Hodag left. And he ends up at now we're fully into issue 4, ends up at the reservoir. And the reservoir there, the police chief shows up, and he's like, Crossjack, you're another person of interest yet again, because you have Hodag, who you ran into, and you had an alibi for, but the other woman just died, and you were very clearly seen at the hotel there at around the same exact time. So you're a person of interest. And Crossjack's like, F that, and he jumps into the water. And when he jumps into the water, there's like a hole down there. He swims through it, and he ends up in this secret lair. And so he thinks at first it's Hodag's secret lair. And so he's like investigating and looking at it. And like there's like this interesting, super powerful artifact that's there as well. And so when he's there, Camo Crusader shows up. And Camo Crusader was part of the old group. And he is the guy who was married to the hero Neon, who the whole affair was accused on. And us as the reader, it's just a little tidbits have been dropped to us about what's happening here. So at first, you think Crossjack just cheated, like came on to his wife, and that was it. Then a couple issues later, you actually realize Neon was actually the one that made the first move. So like, oh boy. And then you learn at the end of this one, like what actually happened, which is insane. So Camo Crusader is there, and you think the whole time like he'd be super pissed off at Crossjack, right? Because his wife cheated on him with Crossjack. And so at first it does kind of seem like there's going to be fireworks, but at first it's not really like that. And when Crossjack, he goes to hug Camo Crusader, he sees that he's not wet. And he's like, oh, how'd you not get through the water to get here like I did? And then he realizes that it's actually not Hodag's like villain lair. It's actually Camo Crusader's. So we're starting to figure out that maybe Camo Crusader is the bad guy here. How is that even possible? And he starts to explain. And for us, in our mind, we don't know like the full story behind the cheating. So we think it has something to do with that of like he stole his wife and like he not being able to like procreate and like his whole destiny is now thrown off because of it. So that's where us as the reader think up to this point. Then the police officer, he makes his way into the lair as well. So he's pointing a gun and trying to like break these guys up. Camo Crusader then grabs the police officer and he has him basically hostage. So Crossjack, he picks up a bow and he says like, the bow, that's the one thing you're not good with. And he shoots it and it hits Camo Crusader right in the eye. And the chief police is like, hell yeah, good job. He's like, I was trying to aim for the hand, but I hit the eye. And it looks like he's killed him and he's dead. And so the police chief, of course, takes Crossjack, puts him in this like secure building. And they're like, hey, you just killed a man, but obviously you did it in self-defense. I got to clear your name on like all this stuff, but you got to stay here. And so the police chief leaves. And when he leaves, it actually turns out that the place that he's left at is Gen 4. So Crossjack was part of Gen 3. Gen 4 owned this building. And I guess that was the training grounds to then lead into Gen 3. And he knew a whole bunch of people there, which I know is going to come up later. That's the only reason I bring up that detail. But that chief left. And when he left to go back to the squad car, then someone shows up through this portal and has a knife and stabs the police chief in the gut. And so that's actually the bad guy. It wasn't Camo Crusader at all. And then he just leaves. So we have no idea who that guy is. And we'll have to wait until, I guess, issue 5 at that point. So that's how the actual comic ends. Then, at the end of each one of these books, you have like a comic of like what actually took place when Crossjack and Camel Crusader, Neon, all of them were part of this group and what they were doing. And so here's where you learn like what actually happened, which is like the crazy part. So you have Camel Crusader, Crossjack, and Neon. They all finished up this mission on saving the universe. This is right after Neon just kissed Crossjack. They go leave to head back to Earth. And when they leave, the whole ship that they were on was blown up and driven off course, and they crash land on some crazy, bizarre planet. And they're forced to, like, you know, try to work together to survive. And there, Crossjack and Camel Crusader are having just conversations and heart-to-hearts and shit like that. And basically, Camel Crusader is like, I know that you kissed Neon. Like, Neon told me. And Neon's, like, super powerful, and I love her, and I honor her. He's, like, super devout Christian, but, like, zealot level of Christian. And he's like, I would do anything for her. But the problem is like, when I got my gift, like, I am invulnerable. I get shot, and, like, the bullets don't go through me. And so, with that, like, I can't feel Neon's touch. So I can't be intimate with Neon. And he's like, will you please sleep with my wife to satisfy her, because I want her to feel good. And then sure enough, the last issue, they're in a tent and Camel Crusader is just sitting on the outside while Crossjack and Neon are getting down. So you actually kind of find out that this was all arranged in the first place, and I guess all three parties were okay with it, but it got out some way, somehow, is our guess. And then PR didn't like how it all played out, because these are like kind of corporate things of that these teams are a part of, and then Crossjack basically had to take the fall for it, is what I'm alluding to now. We'll see when it pieces it all together. So all this stuff is already out as far as this book. Like, the actual issue itself came back out in 2023. So as I work my way through the trade, then you have a volume 2 and a couple of other issues beyond that. But it's a crazy story that's unwinding here. The only thing that I didn't like is, like, I guess when Camo Crusader was in his lair and everything and explaining, like, with the child and stuff, like, none of that has been truly revealed and is, like, a little confusing. So that's why I left it at a 4 and I didn't bump it up to, like, a 4.5. But it's really all about that comic at the end that helps you reveal, like, oh, here's what's actually going on and what happened between all these characters. You come in thinking that, oh, Crossjack's an asshole, he cheated, like, boom. Or, you know, he was the reason that broke up this marriage of, like, a teammate. Then you find out that Neon was the one that made the first move. And you're like, oh, shit. And so it's just Neon who's, like, sleeping around. And then you find out, like, oh, this was actually an arranged thing between all three of them. It's bizarre. Crazy, crazy story. Good stuff. I say worth picking up the trade for sure, especially if you just start reading it through. And I'm hoping on the next Omega that I'll be able to finish it. I might even go ahead and finish it for the regular issue, is my thought here. So those are the books. Again, oh, sorry, I almost didn't go through the art. Let's go through the art. Art is very simplistic, I'd say, on a lot of this Local Man stuff. But here's the start. Jumping into that reservoir, like I mentioned, where the police officer kind of catches up. Then we get down to the lair where Camo Crusader is there, and you find out he starts beating the crap out of him. And you're thinking it's like all because of the cheating stuff, and then he's also doing superhero stuff when he's not supposed to be, now that he's outside of the group. This is where he gets hit in the eye, and he looks like he's talking, but he's actually just down and out, and it looks to be dead. Here they are in, like, Gen 4 training, and then we start seeing some of these people, and I'd imagine the guy who stabs him, the police chief, is one of these guys he trained with in Gen 4, is going to be my guess. And then, yeah, sure enough, this guy, like, kind of pops through this portal. So that's likely the one who killed Hodag, who killed Frightside, and now has killed the police chief. And here's the comic of everything after crash landing on this planet and learning more about these two. And then the scene in the tent right here, like, what the hell? So the only other thing that I can think of, and I'm flipping back all the way to the first issue, is, so here you had a list of the villains. Were any of the other villains part of? No, I don't think any. So that's Hodag, and then you have Frightside, but none of these other look like the Portal one. So it's a totally different character who I imagine is from Gen 4, would be my guess, but not entirely sure. We'll have to see how that all unfolds. So that is an Omega run. Let's just recap the books for you up top so you have them. So we have Batman 157, just the end of Batman versus Commander Star or the KG Beast. And then I think we go on to Hush after this. Then we had Magik number 2, going after the seals to stop Liminal, but summoned by Liminal now. Scarlet Witch number 5, we're going after Chthon, just stop the Bricklayer with Daredevil. Red Before Black is the conclusion between Val and Leo in their story, and Val taking that bullet for Leo. Batman The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween, number 8. We have Gordon and Batman confronting the Dent, but running into Solomon Grundy at Falcone's home. Phoenix, number 8, reincarnated and coming out of the cocoon and ready to fight Pericus and Adani. X-Men in number 11, Corsair's introduced. We think he's getting hunted, but it's the other Summers. It's Scott getting hunted. The Uncanny X-Men number 10, fighting at the mall takes place. The new X-Men are basically able to hold them off, and they're looking like heroes, much to Grey Malkin Prison's dismay. X-Factor number 7, going after the AI engine. They're able to stop it for the time being, and we got Angel back in charge. And then Local Man number 4, the reveal of what it's actually happening between Crosstrack, Camo Crusader, and Neon, and who is actually killing all of these villains. So that's it. Those are the 10 books that we had for today. Like I mentioned, we'll have our regular issue on Saturday as per usual. Haven't gone and picked up the books yet. I'm recording this on Tuesday, so obviously I haven't. But I don't plan to do so until Thursday. I may read some books between now and there, like I just mentioned, Local Man. But I imagine most of the books are going to be from the current week. But I think I could kind of split it up 50-50 and be okay. Like if I did 5 from current and then 5 next week, I think that would actually work out pretty good. So we'll just have to see what I feel like doing and whatever I come up with. Obviously, show's available on YouTube if you're watching it, or Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your podcast catcher of choice. Everything that I do on socials and all that is in the description. I tend to post, like, here are the things that I pulled. Here are the highlights of the week. So I'll do, like, cover of the week, interior of our story, comic of the week, stuff like that. If you're interested, I'm thinking about starting a new series that I may trial and test out. I just gotta find time. It's amazing. Between this and the wrestling, it's like all my free time outside of work goes to this stuff. So to try find slots of like, here's where you can add in some different things, just becomes cumbersome and challenging. But I'm percolating on some things that I think would be actually pretty good. So hopefully I'm able to put all that together. But with that tease, I think we will go ahead and close it out. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed. And if you have any comments or feedbacks, feel free to reach out. But until this Saturday, I will see you guys in the next one.
This has been a DMW production. Thanks for stopping by.